Hi, lads. What I'm going to do here is, first of all, I'm going to recap all of the different rules that we have seen with indices so far before we do any more. So, first of all, we're going to start here off with a question here, and we can imagine here for this question here, it says 5 to the power 4. And what it might ask us to do is it might ask us to do something like, let's expand and then simplify. So if I had 5 to the power 4, how do I expand it and then I simplify it? Well, what I would have here would be 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. In other words, what I have there in front of me is the number multiplied by itself, and we'll end up with four fives multiplied together. Okay, so we'll have 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Um, and then if you prefer, you could use a calculator, and it's 5 box 4, and you'll get a value there of 625. So therefore, the answer there, if we wanted it, would be 625. And then that is your answer. If you were asked to simply expand and simplify the answer, you would end up with an answer that looks like that. Now, that is the only kind of question you would get there, really, if you were asked to expand and simplify something like 5 to the power 4, it could be 3 to the power of 3, etc. And that should be pretty okay for you guys. So the next thing we want to look at then is what would we do if we had to do, we were told to take this question here, 5 to the power of minus 4, and if we were asked to do something like, let's turn this into a fraction. Okay, and how could we turn that into a fraction? Well, what you would do there, first of all, I have 5 to the power of minus 4. Now we're just following the rules of indices, and one rule we know for indices is that really what this means here is I have got 1 over 5 to the power of 4. Okay, whoops, that's not coming out very well. 5 to the power of 4, and this is just one of the rules that you need to learn in relation to indices. That if you ever end up with a minus indice, it means that actually you're dealing with a fraction. Okay, so it's 1 over 5 to the power of 4, and if we were told to simplify that, again, you could use your calculator, but sure, we know what 5 to the power 4 is, so that's 1 over 625 would be my answer there for that one. Okay, so for this one, what we could do again is we could pop in here that we have a value here of 1 over 625. Okay, now I've saved myself time rather than writing in the questions, but for this question here, it would be something like turn this back into a fraction, 5 to the power minus 4, turn it into a fraction. The next thing then is we're told to multiply out and simplify and write it in index form. This one, I don't need to use space for this one because there's very little workings required. What I know is that this is going to be 5 times, 5 to the power of 4 plus 5. And the reason it's 5 to the power of 4 plus 5 is because the rule is if you have the same base number, in this case I have 5 and 5, if the whole number is the same, you can add the indices together. So therefore you get a value here of 5 to the power of 9. Okay, and that is my answer there for that question there. This is, I suppose, the mistake that sometimes is made on this is that people actually multiply 5 by 5, they'll get 25, and then multiply 4 by 5, and they'll get 20. So it'll be something like 25 to the power of 20, which is completely wrong. Please make sure you learn this rule. It's very basic, but you just need to remember it. Okay, so if I have the same base number, I can add the indices together, and I'll end up with an answer, in this case, of 5 to the power of 9. Right, this is where I can actually multiply, because what I should recognize is that I have a base number, I have an indice, and I have a bracket between this and another indice. So the reason I can multiply this is because I have 5 to the power of 4 and multiplied by itself 5 times. So in other words, I have 5 to the power of 4 times 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 5 to the power of 4. And when you work that out, what you'd end up with is 5 to the power of 20. So you can do it longhand if you want to write it out like this: 5 to the power 4 times 5 to the power 4 times 5 to the power 4, 5 times. Or you could just actually multiply the 4 by the 5. Remember, multiplication is quick addition. So our answer there is 5 to the power of 20. Over here, this is a division question. We have a fraction. And what you should all realize is that a fraction really means division. The top number divided by the bottom number. Now, this is not a normal whole number though, because we're dealing with an indice on top of the whole number. So the rule for this is, what I have to do is I have to rewrite this as 5 to the power of 5, and we subtract the indice if that is the case. So in this case, it is 5 to the power of 1, okay? Or you could just simply write it as 5. The next question there should be relatively okay as well. A question that might come up in this one, it might say, could you please expand and simplify this question? Okay, be careful of your signs. So if we look at this one, to work it out, I suppose what you could do is you could rewrite this, expand it, and explain what it means. So this would be minus 5 times minus 5 times minus 5. Now, what makes this complicated is the fact that we are dealing with a negative sign here in front of us. And this negative sign will affect our answer. Like, you can see here that, for example, minus. So if I change color here and just look at them signs, so I'm multiplying a minus by a minus, and finally then a minus by a minus. So if we look at the signs, what I'll actually end up with is a minus, because the minus by the minus will give us a plus, and the plus by the minus will give us a minus, so it's a minus. And you'll end up with 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. Now that was easy, but what if I had, for example, minus 5 to the power of minus 27? Okay, now of course you can use your calculator, but you should be able to predict your signs. So the rule is this: if I have got, let's type this out all together. If I have got an odd number, okay, an odd indice rather, then and I have a negative sign like I have up here. So I have a negative sign here. So I have minus 5 to the power of 3. So I've met two conditions. I have a negative sign, and I have so I'm going to call this. Why is that not working? Okay, so I'm going to say negative whole number, and odd indice is going to give you an odd number. Okay, and we can see that above here in front of us. We have got, if we look at it, a negative sign. So as we change color there, that's going to be red. So you can see here we've got a minus 125. Okay, if that was minus 5 to the power 7, it would be a negative 2. And the opposite rule then applies. If you have got a whole number and it is positive, if you've got a negative whole number, so let's write this down all together so we're perfectly clear on that. So let's say, for argument's sake, I have got minus 5 to the power of, this time to the power of 4. So the sign is definitely, in this case, going to be a plus, okay? And what we'll find there is, because if I multiplied another minus there, I would have minus by a minus would give us a plus. And for this time, it would be 125 multiplied by 5, which is going to give you an answer there of 625. Okay, so that is how you deal with negative whole numbers that have to be sorted out when there is an indice. The final question here is just a continuation of that, where they try to confuse you with all these different signs. And don't be confused. What you need to do is you need to work it out using your knowledge of indices. If I look at this, I can see here I have got a negative sign, negative whole number and a negative whole number. And what's important is that they are the same negative whole number. So I definitely know that when I put this in index form, if I was told to turn this into index form, that my number is always going to be 5. What I'm not quite sure about just yet is what will the sign turn out to be. Well, because we're multiplying these indices together, it's going to be 3 plus 2. So we're definitely going to end up with 5 to the power of 5. But what we're not quite sure about just yet is what will the sign be? Because I have an odd indice and I have a whole number, in actual fact, when you work this out, you will end up with a negative number. That's because a negative whole number and an odd indice will give you an odd number. Okay, just like this one here, we ended up with a negative number here as well. So that has been a quick recap there of the different indice rules we have encountered so far.